Both divers were trapped inside the cave. The exit route had already been blocked by debris. Visibility was so poor that they couldn't even clearly see their own hands. And now they had only a few minutes of oxygen left. At that moment, one diver went back to look for an alternate route, while the other stayed near the rubble. 5 minutes later, when he returned, what he saw was truly unbelievable. Welcome back once again to SMTV's videos. Viewers, cave diving is very different from normal scuba diving. In scuba diving, people usually go into open water, where if something goes wrong, a simple push can take the diver straight to the surface. But in cave diving, there are rocks above and on the sides, and only a narrow passage to move through. If oxygen runs out, equipment fails, or you lose your sense of direction, it's game over. Cave diving is one of the few activities with an extraordinarily high casualty rate. In swimming, about 1.77 deaths occur per 100,000 participants. In base jumping, the number is around 43. But in cave diving, there are about 138 casualties per 100,000 divers. Every year, 25 to 30 divers lose their lives in caves worldwide. The number seems small only because very few people attempt cave diving. Sherlock Springs in Florida looks like a simple pond from above, just a circular pool about 56 meters wide and only 9 meters deep. But the real story lies beneath. It hides a limestone cave system reaching depths of up to 91 meters, filled with tunnels and chambers that make you feel like you've entered another world. This cave is part of the Wakulla Cave System, considered one of the largest underwater cave networks in the world. The entrance begins with a tight passage called the Scars Restriction Zone. It's so narrow that only one diver can pass at a time, and their shoulders and tanks scrape against the rocks. But once you pass through, an incredible sight opens up, like an underwater highway tunnel. Beautiful, yet deadly. On the morning of November 17, 1991, under pleasant weather and soft sunlight reflecting on the water, members of the Woodville Karst Plane Project set out on a mission. Their goal was to explore new cave passages and map them. Among them were two relatively new divers, Bill and Parker. They were friends, driven by a passion for adventure. For them, this wasn't just another dive, it was a chance to push their limits and set a new record. Little did they know, it would become the greatest test of their lives. The WKPP team divided into 4 groups. The first group stayed at the surface near the entrance to monitor the mission and respond to emergencies. The second group placed decompression tanks at strategic points so returning divers could access extra oxygen. The third group handled safety lines and checks, ensuring a clear path for the exploration team. The fourth group, the explorers, was Bill and Parker's team. Around 10 a.m., everyone entered the water. After checking their scooters and tanks and saying a brief prayer, Bill and Parker descended into the depths. At 20 meters, they met George from the decompression team. Soon they passed through the Scars Restriction Zone and reached a large chamber called Wakulla. It felt as if they were floating in open sky. Within 40 minutes, they reached Grand Canyon 4 and descended further. After 25 more minutes, they arrived at Lower Wakulla Room and found an upward route. Everything was normal so far. When their oxygen levels began to drop, they decided to head back. But at the bend of the Grand Canyon Passage, everything had changed. The water was filled with silt. Visibility was nearly zero. The tunnel looked nothing like it had minutes earlier. It was a clear warning sign. Holding the guideline, they tried to move forward, assuming the Scars Restriction Zone was close. But soon they realized the path was blocked. A pile of silt and debris had sealed the exit, and the guideline was buried in it. With oxygen running dangerously low, both began to panic. Bill signaled Parker to wait and wrote on his slate that he would check the line. He went back to confirm they weren't on the wrong path. The line markers confirmed it. This was indeed the exit. But when Bill returned just 5 minutes later, Parker was gone. In the pitch-dark cave, Bill searched desperately with his torch. No sign of Parker. Then he noticed a slight flow of water through the silt pile. Maybe Parker had dug through and passed to the other side. With no time to waste, Bill began digging. Each second felt like death drawing closer. The debris was only about 2 meters thick, but it felt like miles. Finally, he broke through and squeezed inside. The tunnel angled upward. He saw a regulator hanging from the guideline but ignored it. His own oxygen was nearly gone. Holding his breath, he pushed forward until he reached the decompression station at 30 meters and took a deep breath from the tank. Relief washed over him, until he saw Parker's oxygen bottle still hanging there, untouched. Parker had never made it. George later descended, and Bill wrote on his slate that Parker might be dead. In shock, Bill refused to leave without his friend. Eventually, other divers had to force him to surface. The next morning, Parker's body was found in the upper section of the cave. He had removed his gear and was wearing only his wetsuit. Perhaps he believed buoyancy would carry him up faster. He was found just meters away from a decompression tank. He had lost consciousness and died there. Years later, an investigation revealed the true cause. During decompression at 20 meters, divers' air bubbles had accumulated under the cave ceiling. Over time, this reduced buoyancy support and weakened the limestone. After George exited, a section of the ceiling collapsed, triggering a landslide that blocked the passage. Investigators also concluded that when Parker realized the exit was blocked, he immediately began digging by hand, so that when Bill returned, the path would already be open. But his oxygen likely ran out before he could tell Bill what he had done. If Parker hadn't sacrificed himself by clearing that path, Bill might have died behind that rubble too.